Hello everyone, I'm Professor Robert Romano and welcome back to Sports History. Today we're going to talk about the ancient Olympic Games, when they began, why they began, and how they still have an influence on today's modern Olympic Games. So, that being said, when did the Olympic Games begin? When did these ancient games start? They started in 776 BC, and they continued on every 4 years up until 391 AD. So think about that. Every 4 years during these ancient times, people from the greater Mediterranean area came together to compete in these Olympic Games. And they did so for 1,200 years. At the beginning, though, it was more than just sport. All right? It was a religious festival. They came together to pay tribute to their god, and their god being Zeus. All right? And all the people in these Greek city-states came together in this town of Olympia, Greece. Right? And that's where the Olympics gets its name from. All right, coming to Olympia, Greece, they were the Olympics. For you, those of you who don't know, this being Europe, this area down here is Greece. This is Italy, Greece, Spain, France. But this area here, where the Greek city-states were. And this area, all the people from this area came to this little town of Olympia to compete and partake in this religious festival. All right, and like I said, the festival is more than just sport. It contained religious services, music, poetry, singing, and it happened over a 5-day period. All right, so think about it. So all the Greek city-states came together every 4 years to partake in this festival. That festival encompassed more than just sport, religion, music, poetry, singing, all that stuff. All right, so if for those of you who've been to Greece, this is the Temple of Zeus. This is the area where they competed. This is Olympia. This is the actual amphitheater that's still there today. So think about it now. What were the reasons for these games? Why all of a sudden in 776 BC did the Greek city-states decide, you know what, we should have a religious festival every 4 years? Well, they did it to promote goodwill. Right? They did it to unite these various city-states. And what it was built around was this thing called the Sacred Truce, or the Greek name, which I cannot pronounce. But this Sacred Truce, right? And what this Sacred Truce was, it was a 3-month rule. So basically 3 months before the games and 3 months after the games, no one could bear arms, right? Everyone had to put down their weapons. All right, so think about it. If you wanted to compete in the games for 3 months before and the 3 months after, based on this sacred truce, there could be no war, right? All legal disputes had to be suspended. And it was guaranteed by the people of Olympia that anyone who wanted to participate in the games and anyone who wanted to come and partake in the games, either as a competitor or as an observer, they'd be protected. All right, so this is a way to promote goodwill. This was a way to bring the city-states together, knowing that you'd be protected, there would be no war, there'd be no legal disputes happening, and when you got there, you were encouraged to negotiate. All right, so if you had a dispute with another city-state, say Sparta had a problem with Athens, you were encouraged to negotiate, to try to put your differences aside and come to a resolution. All right, either through legal or war or whatever it was, you were encouraged to sit down at the table and come to some form of agreement. All right, you were encouraged to negotiate to an agreement. All right, and you were protected at the same time. So, what they found, what the rule was, this was politically neutral ground. That once you were in Athens, you were protected. You could form alliances. You could settle disputes. All that good stuff. All right. So the initial games, however, were a little bit different than what we know about the Olympics today. They were one single event. The initial Olympic Games was one single event. Not like today where we have 160 events, competitors from all over the world. No, one single event. And think about it. What do you think that first event was? Right? What was this first thing that the sport competitors came to Greece, to Olympia, to compete in? It was a 200-meter race. That's it. So all these people came from all over the greater Mediterranean area to compete in one 200-meter race, which lasts, what, 20, 25 seconds? Maybe 40 seconds. But, one single event. And the first person to win was I'm never going to pronounce it, Corabus of Elis. He was a cook. Right? So he came out of the kitchen, got on the field, on the track, ran 200 meters and won. In the initial games, men could only participate. All right, just be aware of that. Men were the only ones that could participate. Women could not participate. And just give me some pictures here. This was the actual track, the 200-meter track that they ran on. It is still there today. Okay, it is still there today. Dating back to 776 BC. Here's your track, the 200-meter strata. All right, as I said, men could only compete. Well, even more strangely, as we think about it in today's world, men could only attend. All right, so not only could men were the only competitors, men could only attend the games. Women could not participate. Women could not attend the events. And let's make this even a little bit more harsh. If you attended, you could be punished and put to death. One acceptance, the Princessa of Demeter, she was allowed to attend the events for whatever reason, but no other woman could attend. If she did, she could be sentenced to death. It's pretty harsh. Right? Men were the only competitors. Men could only attend. Women could not participate. Women could not attend. And if they decided to attend, they could be sentenced to death. Wow. As the games moved forward, it moved on from just that one event, that 200-meter strata, to include other events. Pentathlon, wrestling, boxing, stallion racing, and chariot racing were eventually became part of the games. All right, so every 4 years, after 60 years or so, they decided to increase the sports side of this festival and include other games: the pentathlon, wrestling, boxing, and then racing and chariot racing, horse racing and chariot racing. Okay, and then there was this thing called pancreation. One of these days, I'll pronounce these things correct. I'll put this link up on Canvas for you, and gotta check out what this sport about. It's pretty brutal. It was like a combination of wrestling and boxing, kind of what our MMA stuff is today. All right, pretty brutal, pretty harsh, but it was a highly anticipated event and a highly rewarded event for the athletes. And some interesting facts about the ancient Olympic Games. All the events were single events, single-person events. There were no team events at the ancient Olympic Games. All right, no team events. There was no soccer team that competed. There was no baseball team that competed or anything like that. Everything was a single event. There were no water events. All right, today we have swimming and diving and water polo and canoe racing and kayak racing. No, not then. No water events were, and there was nothing involving a ball. Except for shot put, maybe. I mean, it may be a ball. But for the most part, there were no events involving a ball. No basketball, no baseball, no football, anything like that. And there were no winter events. All right? This happened every 4 years. It happened during the summer season, and they were all summer events. The Winter Olympic Games came future. Didn't happen until the modern games, happening in about 1926 or so. All right, so some interesting facts. And you may want to remind yourself of these because this may be on the quiz. All were single events. There were no team events, no water events, and just about everything did not, there was no balls involved, right? And there was no winter sport, no winter Olympics. All right, the ancient Olympic Games ended in 391 AD. All right, 1,200 years. Every 4 years, these games went on. And then they ended around 391 AD. And this is approximate on the date. But I want you to take a second and think, why did they end? All of a sudden, after 1,200 years, every 4 years, games. And then all of a sudden, no more games. Think about it. I'm going to take a second, think about why you think these games ended. Well, they ended because of Christianity, right? Um, the Roman Empire kind of collapsed, the rise of Christianity was happening, and with this rise of Christianity, the popes and the clergy decided, we can only pay tribute to one God, and that God is not sport, right? That God is God. So we need to not distract ourselves from our goal of praising God by participating in sport. And also, the Sabbath is for praying, right? Sunday is for praying, right? We need to focus our attention on praying and showing our tribute to God. So, kind of like the rise with the Christian Empire, Christianity, the games ended, right? But they continued on for almost 12 centuries. That's amazing, right? Because you think about it, there were no planes. There were no trains, there were no cars, right? So all these city-states in the greater Mediterranean area came together every 4 years over 12 centuries to compete in these games. All right? So, I'm going to, if you have any questions on this, please feel free to email me, to text me, whatever it is. But what I want you to think about now, right? What I want you to think about with these ancient Olympic Games, with this sacred truce that they had. Bringing the world together in sport, putting down your arms, putting down your disputes, coming together to negotiate. And I want you to think about that concept, this sacred truce, and how that plays a part in today's Olympics. Right? Does it still play a part in today's Olympics? So, the modern Olympic Games, as we know it, have a rule called Rule 50. All right, Rule 50 basically says that competitors, right, those who are going to compete in the games, cannot speak out or protest for political or religious reasons during the games. All right. There is a need to respect other athletes and their moment of glory and not draw attention away from that in any way. All right, so competitors cannot display any political messages, including any signs or armbands. They cannot engage in any political gestures, including hand gestures or kneeling, and they cannot refuse to follow the ceremony's protocols. All right, this is Rule 50. Now, I want you to think, how this rule plays today? Is this Rule 50 a part of this sacred truce that it just continued on? Or is it outdated, right? Or is it past its prime, so to speak? Let's think about it. We had during the trials, the U.S. trials, track and field trials, we had an Olympic athlete, Gwen Berry. Right, she came in third in one of the events, and she protested. Right, she turned her back to the flag. Right, she wanted to make a political statement. She said she's an activist athlete, and she wants to make a political statement. So, is that right? Is that right during the games? Is it right for athletes to protest? Is it right for athletes to stand up and support or promote a political or religious or social issue? All right, so I want you to think about that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a question in the discussion board, on this topic, how you would handle it as a sports manager if you were the head of the U.S. Olympic Committee. One of your athletes speaks out, and they raise their fist or they take a knee at the games to raise awareness about social issues, and how you would handle that as a sports manager, as the person in charge of the U.S. Olympic athletes. All right. Any questions, comments, criticisms? Please always feel free to reach out to me. I'm always available, and see you next time. Thank you.